Right, so get this. 2 days after Makiva Jenkins is found murdered, her husband calls the life insurance company.
Oh, wow.
He's asking about the beneficiary.
Right.
Play the concerned husband.
Mm-hmm.
And when they tell him he's not on the policy, you know what he says?
What's he say?
He says, wow, she didn't change it in time.
Oh, my gosh.
Who talks like that about their supposedly beloved wife?
I mean, that's just...
It's chilling.
Yeah.
So we were diving deep into the Makiva Jenkins case today, and trust me, it gets even wilder.
Yeah, this is a case that initially seemed like a straightforward home invasion,
Right.
but then it just spiraled into this complex web of deceit.
Yeah.
The fact that Yuri Jenkins, the husband,
Right.
could so casually dismiss his wife's death in that phone call, it really raises questions about his state of mind and his true intentions.
Absolutely. And we've got a stack of sources for you guys. Podcast episodes, news articles, court documents.
Wow.
All laying out the story of this successful businesswoman and influencer whose life was tragically cut short.
Yeah, it's really sad.
What's crazy is she had it all.
She did.
A thriving business, a loving family, a positive presence in her community in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. She was only 33.
Yeah, she really was living what many would consider the American dream.
Yeah.
But as we dig deeper, we start to see that picture-perfect life might have been more complicated than it appeared on the surface.
Exactly. So let's rewind to June 28th, 2017.
Okay.
The scene, Makiva's home.
Right.
She's found shot to death in her bed.
Oh, my gosh.
Present at the scene, her husband, Yuri, her brother, Quay, and a friend named Dimitri Dale.
Okay.
Right off the bat, police rule out robbery.
Hmm.
There's no sign of forced entry. Nothing was stolen.
Right.
The whole thing just felt off.
The crime scene really puzzled investigators.
Yeah.
It didn't fit the typical pattern of a home invasion.
Right.
Why target Makiva specifically in her own home with witnesses present and without taking anything of value?
Right.
It immediately raised suspicions about someone with inside knowledge being involved.
So let's meet the players in this twisted story, starting with Yuri Jenkins, the husband.
Okay.
He was a part-time barber. And from what we gather, financially dependent on Makiva.
Right.
But here's the thing.
All right.
Right after the murder, his behavior was, well, strange.
How so?
Yeah. So reports described him as fidgety and giving what prosecutors later called a bizarre interview to the media.
Right.
Almost as if he was trying too hard to appear grief-stricken.
Okay.
But it just came across as insincere.
His behavior raised red flags from the get-go.
Yeah.
Almost like he was putting on a show.
And then things get even more suspicious.
Okay.
Makiva, being an influencer, was active online.
Right.
Shortly after her death, a video surfaces posted by none other than Yuri's ex-girlfriend, Tiffany.
Oh, wow.
And guess what? She also happens to be the mother of one of his children.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This video is like throwing gasoline on a fire.
Oh, yeah.
Tiffany's comments about Makiva were less than flattering.
Right.
Hinting at a strained relationship between them.
Right.
And remember, this is Yuri's ex speaking publicly about Makiva just after her murder.
Yeah.
It immediately made investigators wonder if there was more to the story.
Oh, there was definitely more. Turns out, Yuri wasn't just casually seeing Tiffany. He was having a full-blown affair, and Makiva had found out and asked for a divorce.
Oh, wow.
Add that to his financial reliance on her. And it starts to paint a pretty incriminating picture, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We're starting to see a potential motive emerge.
Right.
A husband having an affair, a wife seeking a divorce, and the possibility of financial gain. The pieces of the puzzle are starting to fit together.
But hold on, because we haven't even gotten to the craziest part yet.
Okay.
Remember Dimitri, the friend who was at the house the night of the murder?
Yeah, yeah.
He eventually tells police something truly chilling.
What's that?
He says that just days before the murder, Yuri casually mentioned wanting Makiva dead for the insurance money.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Imagine being in Dimitri's shoes, hearing a friend so casually talk about murder.
It's bone-chilling.
It makes you wonder, was Yuri just venting, or was he seriously contemplating taking his wife's life?
And here's where it gets even more complex. Dimitri didn't just hear about this alleged plan.
Okay.
He played a role in it. He actually introduced Yuri to Javon Joseph,
Oh.
a man with a criminal history who, as we later learn, was willing to commit murder for hire.
It's a disturbing example of how quickly a seemingly offhand conversation can escalate into a deadly plan. This chance meeting between Yuri Dimitri and Javon would have devastating consequences.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly it all unfolded.
It is.
So we've got this twisted triangle forming Yuri, the unfaithful husband, desperate for money. Dimitri, the friend who connects him to a hitman, And then Javan, the man willing to carry out the unthinkable.
Yeah.
And just one day after Dmitri introduces Javan to Yuri, Makiva is murdered.
Wow.
It's almost like something snapped, and this plan went from a dark fantasy to a horrifying reality in the blink of an eye.
What's striking is the speed at which this plot unfolds. It speaks to a certain level of desperation, maybe even a detachment from the gravity of the situation on Yuri's part.
Let's talk about the night of the murder itself.
Okay.
Javan confessed to the whole thing, and his account of what happened inside that house is truly chilling.
Yeah.
He described waiting in the darkness outside Yuri's home, and then Dmitri leading him inside, and finally Yuri pointing him toward Makiva's bedroom.
Imagine the scene.
Oh my gosh.
Makiva's brother Quay is in the house completely oblivious to the danger lurking just outside.
Right.
Javan, dressed in black and armed with a revolver,
Right.
is brought inside and guided upstairs by Dmitri.
It's terrifying.
It's a terrifying thought how easily someone's life can be extinguished while they sleep surrounded by people they trust.
And that's exactly what happened. Javan, following Yuri's instructions, entered Makiva's bedroom and shot her at close range.
It's just awful.
It's a horrifying act, made even more disturbing by the fact that it was orchestrated by her own husband,
Right.
the person who vowed to love and protect her.
This betrayal of trust.
Yeah.
This calculated act of violence within the supposed sanctity of their home
Right.
is truly unsettling.
It really is.
It challenges our basic assumptions about safety and the people we believe we know.
And here's where the story takes a turn that nobody saw coming.
What's that?
Remember Yuri's plan to cash in on Makiva's life insurance?
Yeah.
Turns out he wasn't even the beneficiary.
Oh, wow.
Makiva had changed the policy, naming her grandmother as the sole beneficiary,
Really?
and Yuri only found out after he had her killed.
So he went through all this trouble for nothing.
Yeah, and we actually have the audio of Yuri calling the insurance company just 2 days after Makiva's death.
Oh, wow.
He pretends to be making funeral arrangements
Right.
and casually asks about the beneficiary information.
Mm-hmm.
And when the representative tells him he's not listed,
Yeah.
his response is chillingly nonchalant.
Yeah. What did he say?
He simply says, wow, she didn't change it in time.
He's so casual about it.
She didn't change it in time. It's as if he's more concerned with the inconvenience of his plan being foiled than the fact that his wife is dead.
That recording became a pivotal piece of evidence for the prosecution.
Oh, for sure.
It demonstrated Yuri's callous disregard for his wife's life and exposed his true motive. It wasn't grief or a desire to be with Tiffany. It was pure greed.
So with Javan's confession and that damning phone call, it seemed like an open and shut case against Yuri, right?
Yeah, you would think so.
But of course, there's always more to the story
Right.
in these situations.
You're right. The prosecution had to build a rock-solid case, knowing the defense would likely try to discredit Dmitri and Javan's testimonies.
Right.
After all, they were both involved in the murder.
Of course.
It's a classic tactic to raise doubts about the credibility of accomplices who might be trying to save themselves.
And the defense did just that.
Yeah.
They tried to paint Dmitri and Javan as liars, claiming they were making up stories to get lighter sentences.
Right.
They also floated the idea that maybe Makiva's online presence, her displays of wealth, could have made her a target for someone other than Yuri.
It's a common strategy trying to shift the focus away from their client by creating reasonable doubt.
Right.
But the prosecution had something up their sleeve
They did.
that completely blew the defense's theory out of the water.
Oh, yeah, they had a bombshell secret recordings.
What?
Dmitri had been secretly recording his phone conversations with Yuri,
Wow, sneaky.
and these recordings ended up being a game changer.
Those recordings were a goldmine of incriminating evidence.
Oh, yeah.
In one of them, you can hear Yuri panicking when Dmitri tells him that Javan is planning to confess to the police.
Oh, wow.
Yuri frantically pleads with Dmitri to make Javan stay quiet,
Oh, my God.
saying, "That's going to mess my life up, your life up."
It's like hearing his guilt laid bare. Those recordings completely contradicted the defense's attempts to discredit Dmitri and Javan.
Right.
They painted a very clear picture of Yuri's involvement and his desperate attempts to cover his tracks.
The recordings provided undeniable context and corroborated the details in Dmitri and Javan's testimonies, leaving very little room for the defense to maneuver.
And if that wasn't enough, witnesses even testified that Yuri went to a strip club the night after Makiva was murdered.
Are you serious?
His defense. He claimed that's how he grieved.
That's a bizarre way to grieve.
So faced with this mountain of evidence, the confession, the phone call, the secret recordings, and Yuri's own inexplicable behavior,
Yeah.
the jury didn't need much time to reach a verdict.
Right.
It took them just 3 hours to find Yuri Jenkins guilty of first-degree murder.
Wow.
Which, for those unfamiliar with legal terms, means the killing was premeditated and intentional.
Right.
He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Well, nothing can bring Makiva back. The verdict delivered a sense of justice for her family and friends. It ensured that the person responsible for her death would be held accountable for his actions.
But what about the others involved in this plot? Where did Jevan and Dmitri end up after all of this? So Yuri, the mastermind behind this whole twisted plot, is spending the rest of his life behind bars. But what about the other two players in this tragedy? What happened to Jevan the hitman and Dmitri the friend who facilitated it all?
Well, Jevan Joseph ultimately chose to cooperate with the investigation.
Okay.
He pleaded guilty to manslaughter, which, unlike first-degree murder, implies the killing wasn't premeditated.
Right.
He received a 15-year prison sentence.
And Dmitri.
Dmitri Dale also pleaded guilty.
Okay.
And was sentenced to 1 year in jail with credit for time served.
Oh, wow.
Meaning he was essentially released due to the time he'd already spent incarcerated while awaiting trial.
It's hard to wrap your head around the fact that this group of people conspired to take a life, and now some of them are walking free.
I know, it's tough.
I keep thinking about Makiva's family and friends and what they must have gone through during this whole ordeal.
Absolutely. We've been focused on the legal intricacies of the case.
Right.
But it's crucial to remember that at the center of it all is a human life lost.
Right.
Makiva was more than just a victim. She was a daughter, a mother, a friend, a vibrant member of her community.
It's easy to get caught up in the shocking twists and turns of a case like this, but we can't forget the real person at the heart of it.
Exactly.
Did any of the sources mention how Makiva was remembered by those who knew her?
Yes. Actually, prosecutors on the case shared stories of people approaching them during the trial.
Oh, wow.
Expressing their grief and sharing how Makiva had touched their lives.
Yeah.
It seems she was known for her kindness and generosity, always willing to lend a helping hand.
It's heartbreaking that someone who brought so much good into the world could have her life taken away in such a senseless act of violence.
It really makes you reflect on the fragility of life
Hmm.
and the importance of cherishing every moment.
Yeah.
Makiva's story is a stark reminder that we never know what tomorrow holds.
Did the sources mention anything about how Makiva's family coped with the loss? Particularly her grandmother, who ended up being the beneficiary of the life insurance policy.
They did. Makiva's grandmother expressed a strong desire for Yuri to receive the harshest punishment possible. She felt that he, as the architect of this heinous act, deserved the most severe consequences.
Right.
And in the end, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Yuri will spend the rest of his days behind bars, a stark reminder of the devastating repercussions of greed and betrayal.
This entire case is just unsettling. You have this seemingly successful couple living the dream.
Right.
And then it all unravels in the most horrific way imaginable.
I know.
That makes you question how well we can ever truly know those closest to us.
It's a chilling thought, isn't it? This case forces us to confront the darker aspects of human nature.
Yeah.
The capacity for deceit, the allure of greed, the ease with which someone can betray those they claim to love.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
Honestly, what I keep coming back to is that recording of Yuri's phone call to the insurance company.
Oh, yeah.
That casual, almost indifferent tone when he realizes he won't be getting the payout, it's just bone-chilling.
That phone call offers a glimpse into a mind consumed by self-interest.
Yeah.
A mind that seemingly placed monetary gain above human life.
Right.
It's a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving. And sometimes the people we think we know are capable of unimaginable acts.
This deep dive has been a roller coaster of emotions. The betrayal, the violence, the cold-heartedness. It's difficult to fathom.
I agree.
But I think it's important that we engage with these stories, even the tough ones.
Yeah.
Because they hold valuable lessons about the world we live in and the choices we make.
I agree. While Makiva's story is a tragedy, it's also a reminder that our lives are built on the relationships we foster and the choices we make.
Right.
We can honor her memory by choosing kindness, compassion, and integrity in our own lives.
Well said. And to our listeners out there, we leave you with this thought. What steps can you take today to cultivate genuine trust and safety in your own life? How can you be a source of light and positivity in your community, just as Makiva Jenkins was? It's a question worth pondering.
It is.
And perhaps it can serve as a small step towards creating a world where tragedies like this become less and less common.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.